If you have work that you love to do and you want to keep doing that work over the long run, I feel like pacing yourself is the smartest way to go.
Hey, it's Julie. Welcome to Uncomfy. A lot of us are struggling right now with how to stay open to others when we seem to be living in different realities. I feel like I'm always walking on eggshells with people. But honestly, trying to bridge differences or make connections is overwhelming to even think about when we're all so busy just trying to live our lives. Well, this is a podcast about staying with the moments we usually want to escape because they're a little hard or awkward or tense. Those are the moments that can actually teach us something. So let's get uncomfy.
I was just completely exhausted. I just felt like I was working as hard as I could, but I wasn't getting anywhere at all. So I felt helpless. I felt like there was nothing that I could realistically do to pull myself out of the situation.
Friends, I want you to meet Elizabeth Svoboda. She's an award-winning science writer. She has appeared in publications including Scientific American, Discover, The New York Times, and she's got a brand new book out. It's called The Art of Pacing, a guide to balancing short-term demands with long-term thriving. Elizabeth, it's great to have you on Uncomfy. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Julie. It's wonderful to be here.
I can relate to just feeling exhausted and overwhelmed. Tell me a little bit about what was going on at this moment in your life when that was sort of your overriding sensation.
Right. So this is all the way back to my sophomore year in college, and I was just taking on too many courses to handle. And there was one course in particular that kind of put me over the edge. It was a course in evolutionary biology, and it wasn't even part of my major. So to be honest with you, I didn't even need to be taking this course, but it was just kind of like, I felt like I should know this stuff. I felt like I should be able to do it. I should be able to master this, no problem. But I would just sit there hour after hour with the notes, with the books, and I just felt like that information was bouncing right off the surface of my mind. It wasn't absorbing. I wasn't making progress. And so I felt like I was just spinning my wheels. And yet I refused to admit that maybe this wasn't a good fit for me. So I just kept trying and trying harder and harder and getting more and more frustrated. Where
did that mindset come from for you? This like, I can do anything I put my mind to, therefore I'm just going to work harder and work harder, work harder.
Right. I was definitely raised with that mindset. I mean, not just in my family, but also my larger community and the friends that I surrounded myself with. I mean, they were wonderful people. They were so smart. They were so energetic and amazing, but they were all taking on so much. And, you know, it's not like anybody directly told me, like, you have to do this and this and this. It was just like, that was such a prominent example that was all around me. And so it was sort of like the air that I was breathing, like, oh, I have to do this too. Like, the more I take on, the more virtuous I am, like the more I'm going to get praise. So there was sort of a cycle of praise that like locked that idea into place that I should be doing more and more. And so this incident in sophomore year is where it really kind of came to a head. It was one of the first times that I had to face up to the fact that I was just doing too much. My appetite was starting to go away, and I just had these anxious, repeating, looping thoughts all the time, and it was just kind of this obsessive anxiety, and that was a very visceral thing too. Like, I would be shaking, I would have so much muscle tension building up in my neck and shoulders. I couldn't relax even if I tried. And at some level, I was just like, I can't keep going like this. And I had never seen a psychiatrist or any mental health professional at that point in my life, but I just decided I'm really at my wit's end here. I am going to give it a try. And so right away, I think it was the first appointment, they were like, well, you have anxiety and we're going to prescribe you this medication. I believe it was a benzodiazepine. Just try taking this and see how it goes, right?
And so were you thinking like, great, this is going to solve my problem? Like,
I mean, I was, yeah, like I was certainly hoping that. But what actually happened was I would take one of these pills, and about half an hour later, I would just start to feel like I need to take a nap. Like the overriding feeling was just exhaustion. And that really didn't work for me because I was like, there's still all these things that I want to do. I still had this mindset of, I want to take on as much as I can. I've got to keep up. I've got to keep up. And so I stopped taking the medication. Soon after that, I think I went to one or two more appointments with the psychiatrist, but I stopped going to those appointments. I stopped taking the pills, and I was kind of right back where I started. I had a pacing problem. And to be fair, like I did because I felt like I was forced to, I did drop that one course that was really the course that sent me over the edge. But my overall ideas about the pace I was keeping or that I needed to do as much as I could, I don't feel like they had changed really at all at that point in my life. I still felt like it was a shameful thing even that I had to drop this course in the first place. I didn't see it as like, oh, this is a smart way that I'm pacing myself. It was more, this is a failure. I just don't want to think about this anymore.
So you needed a mindset shift as opposed to sort of like a fix, right?
Yeah.
So when, I guess like take us forward then, when did you start to think about the idea of, pacing? And I mean, look, time management has been like a popular thing for a really long time. Mm-hmm. So how is this different, and kind of what were some of the like light bulb moments for you as you started to rethink your approach to the way you push yourself?
It took quite a number of years for me to really reckon with it in a meaningful way, but ultimately, like in my later 30s, maybe my early 40s, what I started noticing was that I would go through these cycles of like I would put superhuman effort forward. Like if I had an article due or I just had some big thing in my plate that I really needed to finish off, I would sort of procrastinate to the last possible minute. And then I would just go through this superhuman burst of effort to get everything done. But then as a result of like pushing myself way past my limits, like I would stop eating, I would stop sleeping normally. I just wasn't taking care of myself in meaningful ways during these bursts of effort. Then I would just crash out. And so as a science writer who writes about chronic illness, who sort of writes about the progression of chronic stress into chronic illness, it started to be a real wake-up call because I had read about this stuff for my job, and I was like, am I doing this to myself?
So what's a strategy that I guess has worked for you to sort of prevent yourself from hitting that wall and then, kind of this whole like rubber band, I'm burned out and then back it up and then burned out, right? Like what is a way for you that you have found that works to help you know when you need to take a break?
One thing that has actually been really helpful for me, and this is something that's used a lot in the world of athletics, it's called energy management, and it's sort of based on your natural circadian rhythms. And so the basic idea is that first you identify what are the times of day when I am naturally the most alert, the most focused, and the most able to dial in on something that's really important. And for me, I kind of knew that it was mid-morning. Like I would say it's anywhere from 10 a.m. until 12:30, or whenever I break for lunch that day. And so what I try to do is to align the most intense and the most demanding things that I do have to tackle over the course of the day with these natural energy highs. So, I mean, it's almost like a surfing thing. Like when the energy wave comes in, you ride it, you take it as far as it can go. But then when the lull inevitably follows that, you embrace that too.
And do what? Like literally take a nap?
Yeah, like if that's what you need to do, if you need to take a nap under your desk, you do that, you embrace that, and when you wake up, you're going to have another energy wave. And while I was writing The Art of Pacing, I got to spend a day with an Olympic middle distance runner, Ajay Wilson, and she uses this approach too. Like her most intense practice of the day is like a mid-morning up until noon. And it's only about 2 hours, 2.5 hours, but she is working like extremely intensely during this time. And then, well, I asked her, so after you're done with practice, after you eat lunch, what are you doing the rest of the day? And I thought maybe she would talk about hobbies or going out with friends or whatever. And she was like, honestly, I am taking a really hard nap most of the time. Like, my hobby is sleeping. I might spend at least a couple of hours napping off the intensity of that really difficult practice that I did earlier in the day. And just more generally, this approach of giving yourself the rest and the recovery time that matches the amount of effort that you've put in. I think that's the step that we often neglect outside of the athletic world. I mean, athletes, they kind of learn that if they don't do that, they are going, like, their bodies are going to break down, they're going to get overuse injuries, they're not going to be able to make it through the season. So I think they learn it in a visceral way that we don't always. But even if for us the consequences don't come right away, they're going to start stacking up down the line. Like, if you have work that you love to do and you want to keep doing that work over the long run, I feel like pacing yourself is the smartest way to go.
You have, Elizabeth Svoboda, you have several chapters in the book that aren't really about, they're less about how you're spending your time, and they're more about kind of why you're spending your time, maybe, or sort of what the story is that you're telling yourself about why you do what you do. Would you talk a little bit about the concept that you had of restorying?
There's a great researcher at Boston College, Ben Rogers, and he developed this exercise, or this, what he calls like a restorying framework that anyone can do. And what it is, it's like a series of questions that you ask yourself. And these questions sort of follow the structure of the classical hero's journey. So you're sort of imagining yourself as the main character on a quest. So this exercise reveals sort of what you say you want most, like what is the center of your life in terms of what gives you purpose, what gives you a sense of contribution. And it gets you to ask yourself, like, are what you say are your highest goals, your most important goals? Are you working toward those? Are you furthering those in the way that you go about your life? So it's sort of a trigger that can give rise to this more big picture reassessment, because if you don't have an idea day to day of what your highest goals are and whether you're working toward them, then the more granular pacing tactics that you use, like on an hourly basis, a daily basis, they're not going to be as useful because you haven't done this initial streamlining to figure out, where am I headed and what am I committed to do to get there?
Elizabeth, if you could go back in time and talk to your college sophomore self, who's drowning in work and feeling completely overwhelmed, but thinking that the problem is her, like, what would you say?
I would say you have a long life ahead of you, and stop thinking that everything that you do on a daily basis is going to make or break you. And just make these spaces for yourself to decide which direction that you want to head in. Because if you don't make those spaces for yourself, you're just going to end up frittering away your energy, like spending it on a whole bunch of things that ultimately you don't really care that much about in the long run. So yeah, I would just encourage her to slow down, streamline, focus on the things that are closest to her heart and go for those. Really keep those at the center of her life.
Elizabeth Svoboda is an award-winning science writer, and her new book is called The Art of Pacing, a guide to balancing short-term demands with long-term thriving. It's packed full of fascinating science and some really interesting strategies. You can find her work at elizabethsvoboda.com. Elizabeth, thanks so much for your time. It's been really great talking with you.
It's been wonderful, Julie. Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for getting uncomfy with us today. Do you have a pacing problem too? I pretty much outed myself there. I'd love to hear your thoughts. In what ways are you embracing a little discomfort, whether it's an uncomfortable realization or an uncomfortable situation, in order to get to something better? Email uncomfy@byu.edu or find us on social media. We are at uncomfy.podcast on Instagram. Let's keep this conversation going. Uncomfy is a BYU radio podcast. Samuel Benson produces it, and the team includes Maggie Mathis and Abby Karras. Our theme music was composed by Kelsey Ney. I'm Julie Rose. Can't wait to get uncomfy with you again next week. If you're like me, sometimes you just need a fresh voice in your podcast listening queue to shake things up a bit. And that's why I'm here to recommend The Lisa Show from BYU Radio. It's hosted by Lisa Valentine Clark. She's a widowed mother of 5. She's an actress and comedian, and she knows that real life is messy, but she's here to say you're not alone. Each episode of The Lisa Show explores the everyday struggles we all face, like struggles in parenting, mental health, relationships, social issues, all while also unpacking how to live a happier, healthier life. So catch The Lisa Show from BYU Radio on the BYU Radio app or on any podcast listening app. New episodes drop every Tuesday.